Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us as we discuss matters of African development. This week we focus on technology and entrepreneurship, and our guest is CEO of 7 Seas Technologies, Mike Macharia. We get your views on the issues as well. And as always, we have Africa's top 10. You're watching the Africa Leadership Dialogues. I am Julie Gichuru. This week on the show, we take a look at the all-important matters of technology and entrepreneurship. Africa is increasingly becoming a key player in acquiring, generating, and applying knowledge to development challenges. Yet more needs to be done to make innovation play its part in the quest for transformation and diversification of African economies. Can technology be used to leverage and transform Africa in the way we live, work, play, and govern? On the show, I'm joined by Mike Macharia, founder and Group Chief Executive Officer of 7 Seas Technologies. Mike Macharia is a qualified chartered accountant and has steered 7 Seas to what it is today through innovation, vision, commitment, and passion. The result is a success story in technology entrepreneurship, with 7 Seas Technologies Group receiving accolades from major forums and vendors in its pursuit of excellence, performance, and growth. Under his leadership, the company has expanded into Uganda, Rwanda, and Ethiopia from its humble beginnings in Kenya. Let's go straight to his views on technology, entrepreneurship, and Africa. Welcome to the Africa Leadership Dialogues, Mike. Thank you for joining us. Very exciting things happening in the technological space across Africa, and people are talking about Africa leapfrogging. But in many ways, while people are able to access mobile phones, do we need to provide more relevant content for use by Africans on these platforms?
I think, look, we are in exciting times where today, if you look at most of the telecommunications market and the broadcasting platform, it's digital, right? So I think what is going to happen, and I suspect, is that we're going to have self-generating content, right? Where you have youth, you have different kind of people who generate content that is meaningful and that we relate to as Africans, right? So you may find a young boy who produces content that another young boy in Africa relates to, right? I have a 4-year-old son, and I see him watching a lot of content on YouTube that is extremely global, right? But sometimes I ask myself, is there opportunity for us to deliver content that is localized, right? So he is there watching Fireman Sam, right? Fireman Sam, I'm not sure in Africa if you know what Fireman Sam is, but I'm sure there's no Fireman Sam, right?
It's an animated series.
Animated series, right? I'm just giving an example at a very granular level. But I think to myself, is there an opportunity for somebody to build an African Fireman Sam?
So let's talk about that. And you've talked about the fact that, you know, people can self-broadcast and they can create their own content. And you said a young African will create content and place it there. You didn't say media would do it.
Yes.
Is that because there's already an alarming gap and media is not doing enough?
I think the role of media is to regulate content and to broadcast content. I think the future is crowdsourcing knowledge and crowdsourcing content, right? If you think about the future today, if you look at the past, you'd have to deliver the content, create it. But today out there's enough content being created without you having to do anything. So your challenge is to create channels that are relevant to where you'll be able to marshal in this content into channels whereby it's relevant to me. So I think the future is, or now, not even the future is now, that I watch what I want to watch when I want to watch it.
Right.
On what device I want to watch it. Right. It's not about...
create the platforms.
Exactly. You have to create the platforms. Now, you need to figure out how to monetize those platforms. So then you need to figure out who your audience is. You need to figure out how they want the content delivered. So you need to figure out the traditional companies, as you know them for media, will change. I think the telcos or telecommunication companies
shifting.
Yes, will become your media delivery platforms.
Let's talk about youth in Africa and how we can, as a continent, start to ensure that they do have a place to utilize their creative skills, that we are creating education systems and curriculums that are building youth who are needed, who have skills that match the marketplace. This has been a real challenge. How do we transform our thinking around this area?
I think we've got two sets of the views that we need to think about. We need to think about the academic-driven, white-collar kind of youth platforms or opportunities, which is you want to become an accountant, you want to become a lawyer, and you've got the traditional blue-collar kind of initiatives in terms of job creation. Now, we as a continent, I think we've we've sort of made mistakes by trying to get everybody to be a physicist or to be a lawyer.
But we don't even have enough physicists. Having said that, maybe we have enough lawyers, I'm not sure. But our scientists, our engineers, our doctors are severely lacking.
Yes, they could be lacking, but not everybody could be a lawyer.
Right.
Not everybody can be a doctor. Not everybody has got the DNA to be a doctor, right? Mm-hmm. So the challenge is, majority of the youth, right, are not in that white-collar segment, are in the blue-collar segment. But our education system is so built towards that white-collar segment. My thinking is that to look at the youth unemployment and you look at the way of empowering the youth is to sort of allowing them to rethink the whole education system. Look, we have almost a cookie-cutter approach where we say everybody has to go through a process, right, for whatever reason. Think about a situation whereby we start investing money, transforming this youth into blue-collar workers. Not necessarily, maybe blue-collar, some people in the middle between blue-collar and white-collar. But majority of the population in Africa is in that segment that needs to be able to be transformed beyond academics, right? We don't have enough quality craftsmen at a continent level. We've got lots of projects that we're delivering at a national level, from buildings to infrastructure, but we don't have enough qualified resources. Neither are we making any impact as a country towards that direction. Now, that is something we need to think about. How do we transform that whole youth agenda? But at the same time, large corporates need to start thinking how to create internship programs beyond themselves. You see, if my company has 100-something people, I should not just take 10 interns that are relevant to us. I should be able to take 30 interns that I can absorb 10 and 20 I put up in the market.
Right.
Some of those 20 people may become entrepreneurs. Some of them may work for smaller SMEs, right? If a large company,
they get an opportunity to grow and learn.
Exactly, right. And also see things in a different way. Now, if the youth remain inactive because we are not doing anything, we're not doing enough, we want to maximize our profits, we are also then killing the whole ecosystem. So I think companies should come together and create, and government should be able to almost create policies around internship programs, whereby you don't only take what you need, you take beyond what you need.
Let's talk about the education system, and you said we should allow them to do things differently. If you were seated in a room with education ministers from across the continent, what would your advice be to them?
First, I would change the way we deliver knowledge. I think today we're very intuitive as a youth. If you look at your young son or daughter, the way they interact with technology is very different from me and you. I think I would change the way we deliver content. Today, the youth are very impatient. Sitting in a class, listening to a teacher, they get bored because around them everything is so fast. I would change the way we deliver content. I would change the way we deliver education. I would look at a way in which we create people to learn at their pace, because we can't get the whole society to be the same. Now, how would we do that? We create new ways of learning, right? Today, I think we have a situation where we create a pipeline of C and D students, right? Because everybody has to go through a process, and very few of us and eventually become the A students. And the ones who become A students get celebrated, and the ones who become D students, they feel they've lost the plot, right? So how do you ensure that D student could be D in a class, but could be A in a different activity? So how do you help youth and students discover their real passion? okay, in terms of how you learn, right? So that is how you out-transform the whole learning experience, right? And technology allows you to do that.
Let's talk about that transformation. So right now, in many of our countries, it's a very formal system of education. Some of our systems have removed elements like, sport is limited. Some have actually removed drama. Music is completely pushed aside, and yet these creative industries remain very important. What would you've talked about vocational skills as well. So what would you do with the education system?
I think we need to start celebrating. First of all, I think it's culture. The culture of how we communicate to the youth by saying what you think being successful is. What is being successful? Is being successful being a lawyer, being a banker, okay, being an entrepreneur. As a matter of fact, we don't even celebrate entrepreneurs enough, right? Yeah. The first thing is to figure out what do we think is critical. Anybody could be successful. You could be a good actor, right? Now we begin to see African actors that go to Hollywood. We need to create our own Hollywood. I think Nigeria has done a good job. We need to celebrate musicians, artists, athletes. So traditionally, what we thought was success needs to change in the way we communicate. And I think the platforms, like you have a platform in the media, you need to be able to start looking at ways to transform the way we tell the youth what is success.
Right.
I think I can be a successful artist. I can be a successful mason. I can be the best mason in Africa, right? Or can I be the best mason in a city?
Stay with the Africa Leadership Dialogues.
Just moving on slightly to your work at Seven Seas, what's most exciting to you in the technological space, in the world of innovation? What kind of projects are you working on that give you hope that we can transform the continent?
I think one of the projects that right now we're working on that is, I think, very exciting is a project we are delivering with General Electric in health.
Right.
I think for a long time, the healthcare system in Kenya has been highly neglected. I think it was about delivery of infrastructure without a real, you've got delivery infrastructure that doesn't work really in the healthcare systems. And primary healthcare to the common citizen has been a big issue. I think one of the things we've tried to do as a company is focus on transformational opportunities that affect bottom of the pyramid. And one of the projects we're very excited about is a healthcare project we're delivering right now with GE for the Kenyan government, which is transforming managed healthcare services across the country. I'll give you an example. You walk into a very remote hospital in Kenya, in exactly 1 year's time, you will be able to have an X-ray, ultrasound, okay, mammo for breast cancer, right, OPG for your dental, radiology and diagnostics facilities. Now, imagine a situation you're in Narok, in a very remote hospital, but a doctor in an urban center is able to almost diagnose and be able to give you a reading about, you've just taken an image in a very remote center. And using technology in a more urban area, a doctor is able to then give you diagnosis of what your image looks like. That today is a transformation that many countries have got to leapfrog. And today in Kenya, because of technology and because of the different way in which we deliver in healthcare, that is going to transform the whole healthcare system, reducing the cost of healthcare, because it means at a national level, there were 100 hospitals that are going to be highly managed and well managed, ensuring that the cost of healthcare in the next 1 year or next 2 years drops almost by 40%. Which is a big impact.
This is critical because we see a lot of Africans who have the money traveling outside the continent in many cases. In some cases, it's to the south or to other countries seeking treatment, but in most cases, it's outside the continent seeking treatment. And for the many who can't afford it, really, you have no options. So the transformation of healthcare is critical. You've talked about a project that is really private sector led.
Yeah.
What is your observation on the participation of government or the willingness of government to be part of the change?
Look, government, to be seriously speaking and be very, very frank, it's a government that initiates this kind of projects. Without a government in health, actually in this case, it's a government.
So in this case, it was government initiated.
And the private sector playing a role in co-delivering the project with government. In this case, I think our government has been extremely visionary in seeing how we can transform healthcare. I think the benefits of what government is doing today about healthcare will be seen 4 or 5 years from today. But the challenge is you always have political headwinds that affect these kind of projects, because if a project like this is successful, it means the current government is highly successful. And the private sector then comes to play and be part and parcel of this delivery system. You've got lots of cynics who say, no, this won't work, this will work. But I think that we as a government, we as Kenyans and Africans need to see ways in which we transform and create solutions that are relevant to Africans. Is that correct? So the point is, today we've seen projects in Africa that have become global case studies. I'll give an example. If you look at a very, very successful project that has been implemented in Kenya, which is delivery of citizen services, the Huduma platforms. That has become a global way, showcasing how you can deliver citizen services using technology, right? Health is going to undergo the same transformation. I think education is willing to be tapped. We're looking at areas of delivery of energy, smart grid and everything else. So I think in Africa, we can be a test bed of new solutions.
You know, Mike, just listening to you speak, one feels very optimistic, and particularly when we realize that we're taking those first critical steps towards total transformation in many ways, if we continue to focus and get it right. The challenge, I think, is we're operating in an environment where still we have the issue of insecurity that we have to contend with, where it looks like we have radicalization possibly on the increase, still feelings of marginalization. How do we start to transform that aspect of things? So even as we are addressing things like healthcare and education, the wider society is able to transform rather than those who are perhaps in the safer areas gaining from the benefits?
I think the first thing we need to think about is what is driving this kind of what's driving these changes in the society. I think the first thing, youth unemployment. I think youth unemployment is a big challenge any society has. We have to start thinking, how do we transform, how do we create initiatives to employ the youth? Now, look, if you're desperate as a youth today, you turn to what you think, okay, will work for you. Now, I think our challenge, and it's our honors as individuals and as companies and as a society, to find out creative solutions to create youth, to create jobs for the youth. Now, ultimately, if we have a big bulge of youth unemployment, that creates a big problem for us, whether we like it or not, whether it's an issue of crime, whether it's an issue of drugs. So we need to figure out, how do we enable and get the youth busy enough, right, and give them hope in terms of future, because the challenge is, without hope, what do you have? I think that's a challenge for any government, and I think being in government is difficult, because these are problems you have to deal with every day. It's easy to sit in the outside and say, yeah, we could do, we could not, we could, you should do. But think about it. If you are presented with a 40% unemployment challenge in a country, what would you do? Julie, what would you do if you have presented 40%? You need to think creative ways to get the youth employed.
You've talked about the role of private sector. You've already given us an example of bringing in more interns than perhaps you required and training them. What would your words of advice be to other corporate leaders on what we need to see the private sector in Africa doing?
I think, we need to say, okay, look, the education system requires collaborative support with the corporates. I would think, number one, is to build centers of excellence, integrate to the education system, where major corporates would bring the best learnings, right, or trainings into a center of excellence. So as opposed to one company building an institution or supporting a university or a tertiary training facility, I would say major corporates come together, create, work together with the universities or polytechnics or vocational training facilities, create massive training facilities, and then start getting the youth trained into relevant, relevant skills that are relevant to us in the marketplace.
And this means that the corporates can find the skill sets they require on the market without a struggle.
Yes, from lower end to high end.
Right.
Now, the challenge is, we complain and say, look, the education system doesn't have enough competent people, we don't have competent people, but we don't do anything about it. So why can't we form together? You can't do this individually as a company. We need to figure out, how can corporates come together, okay, and collectively make 1 + 1 = 2, or sorry, 1 + 1 = 3, as opposed to 1 + 1 = 2. I don't only develop skills for myself. How can we be able to come as corporates to build skills for a much bigger ecosystem?
Do you think it'll happen?
I think what's happening is, look, I don't think it's about having these conversations constantly. And companies begin to realize that being successful individually is not really success. Your success means transforming a society. Your success means if I'm successful, another person is successful, we all are successful. I think today in a society where you're the only one who with a burning candle and you can't light the next candle, I think if everybody's in darkness, what have you achieved really? So a challenge for us is to rethink in terms of collective prosperity as a society.
So it's a powerful statement there. As an African, what do you believe our role is? You're a CEO of a successful company. At one point, you must have looked at the journey and thought, will I make it there? You must have had aspirations. You didn't know what you would become, but you tried. As Africans, in whatever space we might be in, what are your words of advice on how to actually chase the dream? Because I think a lot of people stop chasing the dream. A lot of people give up. Cynicism builds, resentment, anger. And when you're not busy building, you're busy breaking down or blaming very often. So how would you encourage people to keep the hope alive, in a sense?
You need to be very passionate about what you do, what you believe in. I think what has kept my hope up in everything I do is my passion and commitment to what I need to do. I think you need to have lots of resilience, and you need to have clarity of thought in terms of where you want to go. I think most of us, what happens, our lighthouse, you need to have a lighthouse that you aim for, and you need to constantly
have a lighthouse.
Yes, you need to always look at that lighthouse and figure out, you could be at sea, and the lighthouse one day looks, it's in the north, it's in northwest, it's in northeast, but somehow the lighthouse has got to remain at your view. And I think what happens, most of us, a challenge we have is that we lose our lighthouse, and when we focus on the distraction now. So irrespective of how the sea could be extremely wild, right? You can see the lighthouse. The lighthouse is what keeps you committed and focused on the goal. Fail big, right? And don't fail small, right? But I think you should never say that I will not try because I'll fail. Right. I think we also need to celebrate failures. If we only celebrate success, most of us never talk about failing. We always talk about success.
With that, I'll just stop you for a moment. I love that analogy of the lighthouse. And when you have your foundations and you see the direction, you have a guide, you're never lost. That's really important. You've just mentioned we don't often talk about failure. And sometimes it's how we get up from failure that really propels us towards, the lessons that take us to success. What was your biggest failure? And what did you learn from it?
I think it's an interesting question because if you look at a graph, let's look at a graph. You have moments where you fail. The challenge is that the net impact of your failures do not become net failures. So you have small failures, you have major successes or many successes. Collectively, your net failure should not be, or ideally should not be, a net fail. So constantly you fail and you are successful. But what tends to carry us forward is that when we fail in the small areas, we also make big leaps in other areas, right? And sometimes failing is also learning. In my case, I think there are things that you find you've done and you sort of figure out, oops, I should have done better, or maybe I should have taken time to think more, or maybe your passion carried you away. Sometimes you're over-passionate and you find that you make a decision because your passion drives you towards it. And then you realize, oops, that was not a very good decision. I think for me, what I always say is my biggest strength, which is my passion, is also my biggest weakness. Because sometimes you realize you drive something too far when you should have maybe said, let me quit.
Take it a little bit slow, but then you also understand your character.
Exactly.
And work with that.
Yes.
It's also something I've observed about successful people is that they don't often talk about their failures. They don't even remember many of their failures. They know they failed.
Yes.
But you've kind of plowed forward. We're coming to the close of the interview, and I really want you to look into the camera and deliver a personal message as a young African who has succeeded. For many who are looking for the hope, what are your words of wisdom?
Okay. I'm thinking, look, there's Africa uprising and there's Africa rising. I think we need to think about Africa rising. I think we are at a great time, at a great place. We have everybody coming to Africa and telling us that opportunity in Africa is there. We need to see the opportunity ourselves. We need to wake up and figure out how can we build an Africa for Africans? How can we build an Africa that is prosperous? How can we be able to look at opportunities where we create value for others? It's not about individual gain. How can we create collective prosperity? How can we make 1 + 1 be 11 and not 2?
How can we make 1 + 1 be 11 and not 2? The multiplier effect of our actions.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Stay with the Africa Leadership Dialogues.
Fascinating insights there. Now we go straight to yours. Let's hear what you have to say. Time for your views on the issues.
This week we asked you, what role should technology play in Africa's development? Alexander Mwema says, technology will help to tap and harness Africa's resources. It will also boost productivity, efficiency, and effectiveness in agriculture and other informal sectors.
Hi, my name is Esperanza Mbitho and I am watching Africa Leadership Dialogue from Nairobi. So technology has brought about tremendous benefits in Africa in that we're able to have faster, real-time access to information about our performances, markets, and customer perceptions, thus improving service and delivery.
To join our conversation, go to our G+ page, Africa Leadership Dialogues, on Facebook, Africa Leadership Dialogues, on Twitter, @AfricaLD, and on WhatsApp, send your video comments to +254 715 816 033.
And now to Africa's top 10.
From smartphones to cargo drones, technology has the potential to transform the future of Africa. These 10 trends show how innovation can ripple through societies, boost economies, and help the continent skip over development hurdles. This is according to the World Economic Forum. Starting us off at number 10 is futurism. The year 2015 will see a move towards futurism among African intellectuals. Concepts will include innovative technologies and groundbreaking ideas aimed at streamlining the integral processes of businesses and enterprises through the use of information technology. Coming in at number 9 is smartphones. The migration from feature phones to smartphones is so obvious a trend that it can often be overlooked. Smartphones are contributing significantly in bringing more people online across the continent. At number 8 is Wi-Fi. The year 2015 will see a more concerted push towards spreading Wi-Fi more equitably around Africa in order to boost economic activity and education. Wearable technologies come in at number 7. Africa will be part of the wearables trend, and 2015 will see the continent gain market share through cheaper smartwatches and health trackers. That will subtly change present behavior for wealthier, earlier adopters. Positioned at number 6 is augmented reality. Augmented reality is a concept using technology where a user simply looks through a third-party mobile device, a launched smartphone or tablet app, and watches in awe as the still image comes to life, transforming into a video, an interactive screen, social media sharing, and lead generation, to name just a few. Slotted in at number 5 is tech spaces. African innovation plays a critical role in shaping future technology globally. It is a vibrant and collaborative environment for innovators and startups to think through their ideas and develop their solutions, lowering the barriers to entry for many young would-be entrepreneurs. At number 4 is translation. Google Translate is now available in 10 African languages. However, Africa has over 2,000 languages. Only 242 of these are used in the media and just 63 are used in the judicial systems. Creating living dictionaries for hundreds more African languages will be a significant undertaking in 2015 for startups. It is cheap and profitable. At number 3 is space. In 2015, we will see private space initiatives. For example, the South African investor Elon Musk's SpaceX begin consideration of private launch sites in Africa. Located on the equator and with plenty of space, Africa has the potential to be a major player in space exploration. Coming in at number 2 is robotics. Robotics can help to screen for radiation or for infectious disease. Currently, there are not enough advanced robots to do the remote tasks we need them to do. African economies will engineer efficiencies through automation. And at number 1 this week is drone pods. Because connectivity defines modern perspective and because Africa will not be able to build roads fast enough to manage its growth, the continent will be the first to adopt cargo drones at a massive scale. And that's Africa's Top 10 this week.
Time to close with the words of wisdom. Our African proverb this week reads, "Tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today." Are you preparing for your tomorrow? Blessings to you and blessings to Africa.